All right, we are live now on the Junius Maltby channel. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you are ready to feel the undue burden of peer pressure as I speech and espouse doom and gloom in the words of my critics, the doom and gloom Debbie Downer channel. Yeah. Well, you're here. You're live on the Junius Maltby channel. We're going to take a look in a little bit more detail on yesterday's discussion. Inflation's in the news now. It looks like we weren't that crazy after all. As a matter of fact, a lot of people spent the greater part, the lion's share of the year, discounting, discouraging others of believing in inflation, saying that it wasn't a problem, it wasn't going to show up. We're not, this is a quote, we're not seeing it. And these are both YouTubers, people in the news, other precious metals channels, stating that there's no inflation. They did that for weeks. Months on end. I even got into a few friendly banter and debates with them in comments and such. They continued to deny it. Some of them have gone as far as to delete content, actual videos that they made stating there was no inflation or that inflation wasn't going to be there or we couldn't see it. Essentially, the counter arguments of what I would make have been deleted from certain content creators, we could say. Which I find that interesting because I have videos up, I'm sure, that are inaccurate and somewhat wrong on prognostications in my attempts at being a soothsayer, which we all fail at. But other predictions that I've had and calls, specifically one that comes to mind would be Bitcoin, when I used to mock that 10 years ago and say it was gone. I was a little off. I didn't call it. I didn't call that right. I've admitted it. I've eaten crow soup on that. Point is, I leave those content up. You can see it, you can go read it, you can go see where Junius was wrong, you can see what he said back then and see if he was right or not. It's all here, even the last year. Now, I've been talking about inflation quite a bit when it was nowhere. It was not in the news. So have you. Every single one of you have seen it. And I went back at the video I just put up the other night, last night, and I was reading through that and then a community tab post from all of you. A lot of you channel members we're really open about sharing your observations, which I love. That's what this community is about. I get input and dialogue from all over the world, from each and every one of you, to contribute. And these little pieces of information really help me piece together what's taking place. It creates kind of a patchwork of the entire globe, because I know a lot of you are international. And I have seen from each and every one of you your own little observations in your local economies that point to the inflation problem. You saw it, I saw it, a lot of people didn't. To them, it's just news. And now it's like they think they've suddenly discovered something. It's like, you don't need someone to tell you that this stuff's showing up. If you have any fundamental understandings of economics, the basics of it at least, you would have realized that we will be facing inflation. I don't even think it's that bad yet. It's not even, I mean, honestly, you have yet to see it, how bad it's going to get. But if you had any fundamental understanding, if you'd been on this channel, if you understand history, monetary policy, economics, all of those things, you would have had no problem saying inflation's coming, it's going to be bad, it's here, look at this, look at that, oh, look at the yields on treasuries, dollar's going to go into decline, and you would have made those calls comfortably and confidently. A lot of people are fence riders. They don't want to. They flip-flop. They don't want to be controversial. They don't want to make a call and maybe be wrong. They don't want to put themselves out there. And it's pretty interesting to me that they will, operate in that sphere and then suddenly act like perhaps they've been thinking about it, that they've been talking about it. They just don't get it. The headlines, again, like I said, they're abounding. They're everywhere. And this is from The Economist. American inflation shoots up 2.6%. Ladies and gentlemen, it's worse than that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to show you how. I got a bunch of links pulled up, but guess what? You're on the most boring channel on YouTube, or formerly. I know some of you think it's not that way, but that's okay. I like calling it that still. I got to stick with the roots. This is where the extemporaneous, unscripted ramblings of a madman are broadcast for your own enjoyment and entertainment, knowledge sharing, news awareness. I'm just a medium in which this information passes through. I'm here to share it with all of you. You might have a morning rant. You might be at work. Some of you are in a shop, in a mechanic shop. I know some of you are truckers. You're driving. Maybe you're on a commute someplace, and this is what you tune into when you're doing that. So thank you. I appreciate it. You guys motivate me. You keep this channel around. If you weren't there, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't do this if it wasn't for each and every one of you, the channel members, the patrons, the Patreons. It's fun. You guys kind of give me a reason to live, man. You guys motivate me to stay alive. No, it's fun. I get a blast out of this. And the more you guys show up and participate, I tell you what, it brings me back every time because you guys are the best. So this, again, The Economist, suddenly, inflation shoots up 2.6%, like it's news. It's funny, you guys called it before they did, I'm sure. A data quirk and a reheating economy pushed the consumer price index. Well, of course, a reheating economy. They just pumped a bunch of money into it. And you know what really concerned me is everything lives on the lifeblood of this economy, which is oil, gas, right? Gas prices apparently went up like 9%, 9 point something. I might get some numbers and dates wrong. I do that all the time, especially with certain key dates. I have a hard time with some of those, but I get in the ballpark. Usually I'm within 5 years of accuracy when I say the dates or whatever. Now, gasoline, fuel costs, we're going to talk about that just for a second because this little sign here reminded me of it in the discussion. And of course, the numbers that came in yesterday on gas and the price increase there. Everything runs off it. Shipping of all things, whether it's the diesel in every engine that ships themselves, in trucks, it's a major cost in the movement of goods and services. It's also a significant cost as it relates to the mining and production of precious metals. In the past, I've done videos correlating the two, kind of showing you the fuel costs and the gold costs because of how much fuel it takes to get an ounce of gold out of the ground. And that varies. Little kitty, can you be quiet, please? We're talking about inflation over here. No, that's the increase in the price of cat food. Okay, bring the toy over here. Okay, she's going off. She wants to go show Mrs. Maltby a toy that she found. She does this thing. It's bizarre. She's a cute little kitty, but it's disruptive. Kitty, can we have some silence, please? Some quiet? Good. Anyways, the price of everything is, again, going to be tied to the price of gasoline, the prices of oil. And I just want to keep an eye on that because it's just one little factor that I think can actually accelerate and kind of tip the dominoes of inflation. You can bring it over here, kitty. Silence. All right. Continuing on. Now, I know some of you might have a problem with this, but I don't really care. This is an article from Al Jazeera, and they actually do sometimes hit the nail on the head. They produce some pretty good content in the news. If you think it's biased or skewed, have you ever looked at the United States media, the news that comes out of there? You want to talk about biased and skewed. As a matter of fact, I would say oftentimes you'll find more facts in international news outlets, the non-mainstream, the non-CNN, the non-Fox, the non-MSNBC or CNBC. You'll find better news internationally from like RT and Al Jazeera than most United States news outlets, which I don't think can be trusted at all. Most news these days in any outlet is going to be skewed in some direction and has some type of a motive. I don't think there's any non-biased information produced by news outlets any longer. I think it's next to impossible. The closest thing you probably get to it, and I think that's why the YouTube community has grown as much as you kind of get a little bit closer to it maybe there. When you can eliminate sponsors and all of that. Now, this is here from, again, Al Jazeera says, is inflation a problem? And if so, who will feel the most pain? Well, I will just answer that without reading their answer to it. And I would tell you it's, the lower incomes, the fixed incomes, the Social Security earners, the pensioners, those are going to typically suffer the worst from inflation. As a matter of fact, I was notified today of a friend of mine whose flight was canceled. This is important. This relates to the economy. Very important. This, again, you talk about sharing personal stories. Again, I would love to go back and just read all the comments you guys shared on the last inflation video and in the community tab. You guys threw out some amazing personal experiences as related to inflation. So here's one from me that I'll share with you real quick. Mrs. Maltby and I have some family and friends. We're going to fly in and visit from out of the area. We were notified yesterday their flights had been canceled, completely canceled. Weird. I was thinking, I wonder what would cause that to happen. You want to know what turned out to be the case? the entire, like, I don't know, flight crew, the airport, the airline, there's a massive strike. Okay, they don't want to work in a time of record unemployment, mind you. We'll talk about that at another time. But massive unemployment rate. People need work, need jobs. The economy's been shut down. Even the airlines have been shut down, right? They've been out of work for a while, I would imagine. They went on strike because, and I quote, wages have not kept up with inflation. They're not making enough to live, so they went on strike and shut down an airline. Now, I don't understand how a union of an airline could say that or do that when certain clowns, YouTubers in makeup, and little, fat-fingered stilet collectors out there, and little, the apologists for the state, the apologists for the dollar, the apologists for the Fed and the mainstream system, when they've been denying and saying inflation's not taking place, then how is it less than 24 hours ago an entire union went on strike, causing the cancellation of flights because, quote, their wages have not kept up with inflation? Which means inflation's been here for a little bit longer than you and I think, and even probably longer than the news is revealing. Now, this article says inflation is in the news because the prices of goods that everyone around the world, this is, again, remember I said this is not going to be an isolated event. This is not just the United States. This is not just England. This is not just South Africa, Australia, or New Zealand, or Canada. This is an international sickness. You want to talk about a pandemic. We have an inflation-demic. We have a fiat-demic. We have a leper currency-demic. And it's going to rot the world economy. And the idiots, okay, the booger eaters, the graham eaters, one of whom I had to debate in a comment earlier, a community tab. He was just like one of those incessant little ticks or a parasitic insect that just kept humming around and buzzing around. It's like you just got to swat them off. Those people, they just don't see it. And they're going to end up in a very, very dire predicament because of it. Because if they're not going to make the adequate preparations for such a situation, such an unfolding, such a shift, such a reset. Oh, and believe me, when we say reset, that's not a conspiracy theory anymore. Just so you know, it's being applauded. It's being talked about. It's being talked about as necessary, and they want to usher it in as quickly as possible. Even Janet Yellen, she is talking about a new Bretton Woods meeting between financial authorities and those who run the world economy. They want to have a new Bretton Woods because the last one worked out so well. I think it lasted, like 25 or 30 years before that fell apart and shut down and the dollar was defaulted on and they couldn't no longer redeem it into gold. And Nixon had to do all of his little, temporarily suspend the dollar into gold controversy. So that didn't last too long. Maybe the next Bretton Woods they'll do, maybe that'll give us a couple more decades of some new fiat. I wonder, maybe they'll put Kim Kardashian's face on it this time. Maybe she can be like the international unit of account. It's her face on some paper whore bill. Now, is inflation a problem? Yes. It's in the news. Goods and services everywhere around the world are going up, like food and fuel. Here's what you need to know. Thank you, Al Jazeera, for at least sharing this type of information. As economies recover and the big ones continue to benefit from massive injections of government stimulus, okay, a wonky and sometimes scary buzzword has crept back into the conversation. Inflation, something the Junius Maltby channel has been talking about for quite some time. And again, I'll remind you because I do think it's pertinent. I've suffered an inordinate amount of ridicule, accusation, and criticism for speaking about inflation and identifying it as a problem prior to this week. For the last several years, but this 2020, 2021, when I was talking about the massive stimulus, the quantitative easing, the $27 billion a day the Fed's pumping into the financial system to prop up the markets, video after video after video on market cap, money supply, and precious metals outlooks going forward, I was criticized for it. And then all of a sudden, other people come out and like, oh, inflation's here, inflation's real, let's talk about it. And I'm talking specifically about certain precious metals enthusiasts that are out there, more like hobbyists, that don't really have a very connected understanding of the fundamentals of economics. And so they drastically fail to identify the trends and what's taking place in these markets that's going to drive metals forward. They just don't get it. Honestly, clearly, they do not get it. Now, broadly speaking, inflation is when prices rise and the money in your pocket doesn't stretch as far as it used to. And I know you guys, this is preaching to the choir. All of you understand inflation quite well, the definitions of it, but let's suffer through this. Let's see what the normies are reading. Let's see what the NPCs are digesting these days when it comes to the media's presentation of inflation, even if that means from a controversial outlet such as Al Jazeera. Now, a little bit of inflation is no bad thing. Wrong. A little bit, it's not going to be as damaging, but I don't think there's any healthy amount of poison or toxicity. Now, they say it's not a bad thing a little bit because certain economies use that to adjust things, but too much can be really, really damaging to economies and livelihoods. Not just damaging, it can be fatal. It's typically, once you run off the rails, inflation can actually be fatal to an economy. The economy will not recover after a massive hyperinflationary stage unless there is 100% turnover and change in government, change in the monetary unit, and change in the entire economic model of that state. There's no coming back from it. It's not like a recession and then you kind of dig out of it and people go back to work and things get better. When you have a hyperinflationary scenario, it's game over. It's like when you're in a bus in India driving a pass in the Himalaya and it just goes off the edge and it plummets 5,000 feet and collides with the earth below. There's not really like a continuation of that journey. You know, you're not going to get to your destination anymore. You're dead. Everybody in it's dead. The goats, the chickens, everybody stacked up in the bus. It's no laughing matter, but it's a grotesque analogy that just came into my head, so I shared it with you. The fact is, there's no coming back from certain amounts of inflation. It gets to a point of no return. Now, this is going to be a controversial subject for some people because a lot of the normies, those that suffer from the normalcy bias, a lot of the NPCs, can we cue the NPCs? Can I summon a crowd of NPCs into the comments, please? So that people know what we're talking about. These little NPCs that are out there screaming and whining and being apologists for the system, trying to defend it. When you get to that point of no return, it's over. That's it. There's no suddenly changing things. And these people live in a state of complete denial that can happen. And they do not believe that the dollar is exposed to that. They believe that America is somehow exceptional and that we have this, immunity to economic law, that the dollar will always go on because they've never experienced hyperinflation and inflation, massive inflation. It therefore cannot happen because they themselves haven't experienced it. And they just repeat what the media tells them, that everything's okay. This can't happen to the dollar. It's different this time. We won't make the same mistakes. The Fed has the appropriate tools to address the issue. All of those little buzzwords. Anytime someone's telling you that, quote, the Fed has tools, I need you to stop, pause, and realize they don't know what the hell they're talking about from that point forward. Okay? American privilege. What is American privilege? What is the US dollar privilege? A lot of people talk about privilege these days. Well, I would say that the privilege, American privilege, United States privilege, Federal Reserve privilege, is they're allowed to have a monopoly over currency issuance that is immune. And it does not suffer the same consequences as other economies, like economies run by brown people in Africa or South America or other parts of the world. Their economies are different. They don't know how to do it right because they're not as educated. They didn't go to our schools. They're not part of our system. Ladies and gentlemen, that type of privilege, to me, is completely off base. It's wrong, right? I mean, you and I know there is no such thing. They in their heads might believe they have that, those that run the Fed and the Treasury, but it's not the case. Reality is reality. 2 + 2 is 4. If I drop a bowling ball, it's going to fall because of gravity. There are certain laws that are unavoidable on this planet. These people think through their alchemy of fiat fractional reserve banking and their control of the Fed. They think that that form of alchemy, they can print gold and just create money, and that somehow that their magical powers, these wizards of central banking, these wizards of Wall Street, these warlocks, they think somehow that they can spin enough spells out of their crystal balls and their little magical wands. These Harry Potter economists, we'll call them. That's what the Fed, that's what Janet Yellen, she thinks she went to, gosh, I wish I had Mrs. Maltby here. She would know exactly, what's the school that those kids go to? Hufflepuff, Puffdorf, whatever. The, that school where the little wizards go, little kids. Maybe that's where Janet Yellen went to. Maybe that's where they send Fed people to, and they're little wizards, little economic wizard school, and they learn how to cast these spells and work magic to protect and they cast a spell of protection upon the Federal Reserve Knight, Esperianus or whatever they say. That's what they do. They pass these little spells and they protect their economy. It's not true. The thing is, it doesn't work. It's all in their head. Thank you, Ned Flanders, for answering the question. He says Hogwarts. Mrs. Maltby would have been very upset that I forgot that name because she likes the that series. I watched all of them with her, by the way. I did sit through all of it, and I was entertained. Yes, it was fun. We watched it all. My favorite part was the giant chessboard. I actually wanted to play on a giant chessboard like that. It'd be kind of cool, where they come alive and battle each other. That was very entertaining because I like chess. Even though I'm not that good at it, I sometimes will win some people. Let's get back into this. Come on now. I told you guys, when you tune into the Junius Maltby channel, you don't know what you're going to get. First of all, why is everyone talking about inflation right now? Inflation is in the news because economies are gearing up again. As factories and supply chains grow back to life, it's causing transport bottlenecks, rising shipping costs, shortages of commodities like copper and oil to produce things. Not to mention, this is a massive flow of printed off, freshly minted cash flowing through the economies of the world. Now, another reason inflation is going up is that some governments, notably that of the United States, are spending a lot of money to help their economies recover their pre-pandemic mojo. Yes, that was the controlled demolition of the economy. The economy they murdered and shut down and collapsed because a couple people got a fever and a couple got a flu. That's it. Everyone else recovered from it. It was fine. And they probably caused more damage, more death, more mayhem and catastrophe, and set the world off in a much worse direction, shutting this economy down, than if they had just let it go. And history will prove that right. I don't care what anyone says. History will judge this. However, it is written by the victors, those who are still in power, so perhaps not. Hopefully there's some contrarian writers out there of modern history that will recognize what these culprits did, how they collapsed the economy, ruined lives, destroyed businesses, and caused mass death and mayhem in the world. And they'll never be held accountable. They should be, but those who shut down this world economy, I'll tell you, hopefully they are judged by those in the future. And I mean, like those like Fauci, anyone in power who was an architect of shutting this system down will hopefully be judged severely. So do I have to worry about rising material prices? You do, if factories pass those increased costs on to wholesalers, which they will. I don't see why they wouldn't. No one is going to not pass on costs. No one does any of these tasks or work or labors out of altruism. These people are not there to run a factory or a business to give you things and to work and provide services for you for nothing. I'm sorry to tell you that. Yes, history does show factories, everyone who produces anything, laborers, anybody at all, will pass on these increased costs to you. Inflation cometh. Inflation's coming. There's nothing you can do about it. The naysayers, the critics, the normies, the NPCs, the booger eaters, those that have told me for months now that there's no inflation and not to worry about it, not to look for it. We're just not seeing it yet. You know who I'm talking about. You know specifically, I'm sure. They're clowns. Ignore them. They were wrong. If they're wrong on that, I can't imagine what else they are wrong at. Now, there will be higher prices. Retailers will pass these costs on to you, the consumer, in the form of higher prices. You will pay more for everything. Factories are passing on higher material costs. I'm going to tell you right now, lumber, OSB, someone in the chat just said OSB is a $50 a sheet. That's a building material, 4x8 sheets used to build homes. The exterior is typically the sheathing that goes between studs and things. That's not it. That's not the only one. I mean, studs, everything, every piece of material, every single piece of material from the nail to the shingles on the roof has increased in costs. Not to mention the labor. You're going to have to pay these guys more to build. You're going to have to pay loggers more to log, trucks more to haul timber. It permeates the entirety of the economy. It's not isolated to anything. You'll eventually, and you can write this down in case you think I'm wrong, or if one of the critics wants to say that it never happened, you can hear this, that there will be an attempt at price controls. Remember that and put it in quotes on this very day, that Junius said there will come to be, quote, price controls. They will intervene and try to control price. They're already doing rent controls in places. They're trying to do, they're preventing the free market from allowing evictions. Private property owners are no longer allowed to have control over their property. This is actually helping sustain the mortgage market and prop it up because they're preventing defaults. They've suspended student loan. All of these things you see, the suspension of student loans, they are inflating this bubble and propping it up and barely holding on. And they're having to control things in ways that would not normally occur in a true free economy. It's being propped up, which means it's fraud, which means it's fake. Yes, I said it, fraud. It's another thing I'm criticized for believing that there's fraud. Believing that there's corruption here. Thank you for the super chat, Christine Nguyen. Thank you for the support of this channel. I very much appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Yes, it's a fraudulent system. The mortgage market was fraud in 07, 08. It's still fraud. It's fraud now. That's a bubble waiting to pop, let me tell you. I've watched prices of houses around me double. And people don't get that either. But it's not just the mortgage market. I'd say the entire system this time. Even the numbers they use to calculate inflation are fraudulent. You might be wondering, well, Junius, that can't be true. They wouldn't do that. Really now? Really? They wouldn't lie. They wouldn't be dishonest on something that is a direct measure of their performance if it was negative? If you could write your own personnel evaluations or your job evaluation at work and your employment, your continuation of employment, everything depended upon it. How would you review your performance? How would you write it? Would you illustrate it 100% accurately? Would you tell them, on a given day, I'd say I actually do about, 15 minutes of real work. I come in about 10 minutes late. I kind of just drift off for about 10 minutes, staring off. Sometimes I just kind of sit there and pretend like I'm functioning. On a given day, I do about 15 minutes of real actual work. Yeah, I'm sure you guys get the reference to the movie there. It's pretty funny. My point is, you'd probably give yourself a pretty shining job performance evaluation, and I wouldn't blame you. I'd probably do the same thing. These people doing the CPI and releasing inflation measures and numbers, it's the Fed and Treasury essentially telling us how they're doing, how they're running the economy. They're not going to tell you the goddamn truth. Are you serious? Of course they're not. You'd be stupid and naive and a child if you thought so. As a matter of fact, most kids are probably rational enough to think that they wouldn't be telling you the truth if you could break down and explain to them what it is these measurements are and who's telling them to us. They don't get it. It's happening. This is happening. Inflation's happening. It's coming. Let's continue on. What about prices for consumers? Those are spiking too. U.S. consumer prices jumped 0.6% in March, the biggest monthly jump since August of 2012. Nearly half of that rise was due to the climbing petrol prices, which rose 9.1% in March from the month before. That's the petrol prices I talked about. I love when the international writers and such use that as in America we just say gas or diesel, no one, and say petrol. We've got to get the petrol into the lolly and roll that petrol down the road in that lolly there so we can deliver it to the other places. Yes? Yes. Yeah, I love it. I love when they say petrol. Now, lolly, that's one I don't get. I don't understand where the word lolly comes from. So will prices continue to climb? That's a hotly debated question right now among economists and policymakers, especially in the U.S. Now, if that was a fact, if it was true, mind you, why would it be hotly debated? I mean, it just goes to show you that I don't think that economics, it's interesting to me because they try to pretend it's a science, right? It's interesting that it can be debated like this because real science, real facts, and real mathematics, if you and I were talking and I said 2 + 2 is 4, you would agree. You don't really debate that because it's pretty clear and factual. But I could go off on this as if it's its own topic, its own video. We could get distracted on hours talking about the debate of the science of economics. The fact that this sentence says that it's a hotly debated question whether or not there's inflation just goes to show you how chaotic and incorrect potentially those in power that run the systems of finance actually could be and are oftentimes. I mean, it's debatable. Everything's debatable. You could have we see it every day, the debates around economics. So who's right then? If the presence of inflation is debatable, I would ask you and challenge you then, who's correct? We're going to have to pick a direction here. It's either not that bad or it's really bad. It's really not in between here. I'm going with the guys that have been accurate in the past and made some pretty significant calls. I'm going with Dr. Michael Burry. I'm not going to go with some booger-eating YouTuber who's been saying for 6 months there is no inflation and then deletes videos where they said that because they don't want people to know that they ever said that type of a thing. I'm not going to talk about that. I would go with the Dr. Michael Burry, who called the last financial crisis on point, who has a pretty firm understanding of the fundamentals of monetary policy and global economics and history, who's been telling people to learn about Weimar Germany, read into it, look it up, presented books on it, encouraging people to discuss it. This is a guy who's not being listened to, and he's likely being mocked. He's being criticized, Michael Burry. Nobody's paying enough attention to that. Okay. He's on point. He's going to be correct. Let me tell you this. He's going to be right. Same with Peter Schiff. Gets a lot of flack. But when he's right, let me tell you something. It's ugly. And he will be. Like in the movie The Big Short, when Michael Burry tells his critics, he's like, oh man, I'm just, the mortgage market's fraudulent. I'm just a little early is all. I'm not right yet. And the guy's like, that's still wrong, Michael. Early is still wrong. It's not though. Being early is just being better prepared. Being early is not being wrong. It's just that you were right sooner. Being early on this does not mean we were wrong. It means we were correct and we were right sooner. We identified it before others. Some people don't effing get it. Now, why is there a debate about this? Well, because they can't agree on whether these price surges will prove temporary or not, or if the U.S. economy is in danger of overheating thanks to the $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief aid that Congress passed in February. And then now they're talking about the infrastructure, $4 trillion there. Ladies and gentlemen, the stimulus, the quantitative easing, the devaluation, debasement of the dollar has not even begun. It hasn't even started. These people are just getting warmed up. We're not even in the first inning yet. That pitcher just threw the first pitch of a 9-inning game. Now, the massive stimulus added significantly more firepower to the consumer spending, the engine of the U.S. economy that drives some 2/3 of growth. Isn't it incredible that consumption is now the engine of our growth? Consuming, spending money, and taking on debt is the driver of the U.S. economy. Not that we produce anything, it's consuming. Like big, fat American just eating, stuffing our faces full of feces and our garages full of shat. Just consuming and buying useless garbage and then renting storage facilities to store more of our garbage. Silver Beard, thank you for the $5 super chat, my friend. Thanks for the support. I appreciate you being here, my friend. Always. Now, that massive stimulus added significantly more firepower, right, to consumer spending. They're gone. Most people spent all of their money already. They're not saving anything. If they are, it's going to be just, it's gone eventually. They're gone. They're in debt. It's debt. Now, what does this mean when the economy overheats? Well, when an economy is overheating, demand for goods and services grows quickly. That outpaces supply, drives up prices, and that can incentivize firms to take on debt in order to boost their capacity, in the expectation that the good times will only get better. That doesn't sound so bad. It is, though. Should prices start spiraling viciously upward, some are worried that if that happens, it could prompt the U.S. Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, to raise interest rates, which cools demand and economic growth. Oh, but they can't because we're the biggest debtors in the nation, ladies and gentlemen. They can't raise interest rates. We won't be able to afford the interest payments on them. It'll damage the United States. It'll wreck things. They can't. We've seen it. We've talked about this math. You need to go to the U.S. debt clock. Do you need to see what the interest rate is, what the debt is? All of that spare capacity after they cool the economy and economic growth. When that happens, businesses sunk money into what would likely be idled. Things will slow down, which means they'll start to lay off workers. We already have an unemployment problem, ladies and gentlemen. Can you imagine if it starts to get worse? There could come a point where it's 50 to 60% of this nation's unemployed, of your nation unemployed. And they're just printing off money to, who's going to pay for all of this? How does an economy drive in that situation? Welcome, Paul Laidler, one of the newest channel members. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new ANCATS Pillar Dollar member. His name is Paul. Welcome, Paul. Glad you're here. Experiment with the super chats or the emojis. Check them out. They're really cool. I think you'll like how those work. And yeah, we do take super chats if you ever feel like it. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here, my friend. Good to see you. I don't know if I recall your name, but then again, I'm not always in the chats. That's often Mrs. Maltby because I'm busy in the articles. But glad you're here, my friend. Now, do you think the Fed's going to raise interest rates? Personally, I don't think they can. Now, we've talked about this in previous videos over the last few months. Remember, they committed essentially to not raising them. The Fed's like, we're not going to. We can't. We're not going to raise them for at least 2 years, I think they said. 2 or 3 years. And they'll get to that point. They'll realize they absolutely can't. Can you imagine what we could actually do it real quick. Let's see what the U.S. debt will be in 2 years, because you can actually do the time machine, I believe. Let's go to it. Let's check it out. Yeah, we welcome the new channel member, Paul. Did you see that, Mrs. Maltby?
I did.
Okay, debt clock time machine. I'm trying to show you all. You can only go to 2025. I wish you could pick the actual year for the calculation, but let's do 2025.
And by the way, thanks to Rick Golfman.
Oh yeah, Rick Golfman,
and
best
Rick
group.
Enfed.
Rick Enfed and Rick Golfman. Thank you both. Appreciate your guys' support for this channel.
Christine earlier as well. Thank you to her as well.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick. It's the Ricks. Hey, it's the Rick brothers. Rick and Rick. Rick squared. I like it. You guys should hang out. The Rick brothers. I love it. Welcome. Now, I just fast forwarded because I can't go to 2023 or whatever. But what are we at? We're like 28 trillion right now, right, friends? Do I need to zoom in on this? Can you guys see it okay? My eyes ain't so good. What? I don't have my glasses. Hello? Hi. Yes, ma'am. I can't read the U.S. debt clock because I don't have my glasses. It's 49 trillion. 49.8 trillion. These change, ladies and gentlemen. It could probably get bigger than this by then, based on what Biden's behavior is already at, based on how they have already discussed things, and the 4 trillion that's yet to pass. Oh my goodness, look at the debt to GDP. We're going to talk about that in a second. This is rad. This is crazy. I'm losing it here today. Look at this. 49 trillion. This is in like 4 years. In 4 years on this day, we should be around 49 trillion dollars with a debt to GDP of 190%. Ladies and gentlemen, 190%. Let's see what I just saw the request. Let's see the silver price at this time. Let me bring it up for you, my friends. I got distracted. I told you there's no script on this channel. I don't know what I just do things. And I thought this would be good to look at. Can you see this? The dollar to silver ratio in the year 2025. Can you guys read that? I'm going to zoom in. You guys got to see this. I'm not even going to say it. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to zoom in and then I'll read it. I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm looking at here in bigger letters, bigger numbers. This is remarkable. We're in a time machine right now. We've time traveled to the year 2025. If the Earth is still here. Okay, can you guys make that out? What do you see? Shout it out. Shout it from the rooftops, ladies and gentlemen. What do you see there? It's the year 2025. We're 49.8 trillion in debt. The dollar to silver ratio is $13,515 per ounce. The dollar to gold ratio, $96,407 per ounce. The paper to silver ratio is 159.39 ounces to 1. The paper to gold ratio is 72 ounces to 1. Now, personally, I don't even see how this is going to last this long. Honestly, how they can keep this going with the debt to GDP. Ladies and gentlemen, in 1980, the debt to GDP was 34%. According to this, in the year 2025, the year of our Lord, it is 190.88%. Ladies and gentlemen, I would urge you to review the facts and the data here today and to realize that we are not in a very good situation. If anything, it is dire. We must be, in these desperate times, aware that we must stack precious metals, gold and silver. I'm being serious. Of course, when you put a British accent on it, it just adds authority, I believe. Thank you, Paul Laidler. I appreciate it, man. Where do I pay for and epic rant? Well, you're on the channel where epic rants have been known to take place. The reason I interjected this is because where we were just reading, and I'll go back to it. I'll close this out. You're on the morning show of the Junius Maltby channel, live. Welcome, Paul. Yeah, you'll get used to it here. It's crazy. Now, we just talked about them raising interest rates. They can't do it. Okay, the debt's 28 trillion now. It's going to be 50 trillion then. It's probably going to be worse. I can imagine it's going to get worse because we already know the behavior and who's going to be in there. And there's a lot of unknown variables. We know this, though, the trend. It's not going to get better. Like, it's not going to be less than 49 trillion. They're not going to somehow cut spending and change their behavior. Absolutely not. So we know based on that alone, the trajectory, in my opinion, is going to be far worse. Far, far, far worse. It could be 70 trillion by the time 2025 gets here. If we haven't broke this thing yet, if they haven't balkanized, we'll see. Again, that's why I don't think they can raise rates, honestly. I just don't think they can. They're just going to press us all into slavery of some kind. They're going to keep doing it through inflation. That's their only ability. If they can't raise the interest rates, they're going to do it. They're going to do things. They're going to figure things out. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has repeatedly, and I mean repeatedly, said that the Fed will not raise interest rates. That's in the article here. I've repeated that. I've told you that. We covered that news until the economy is recovered from the ravages of COVID-19, especially the jobs market, where there's still a lot of healing to do. Of the 22 million jobs lost to the pandemic lockdowns in spring, some 8.4 have yet to be recovered. And if anything, they've cut their wages, cut their hours. The money they're being paid is not the same. People are hurting. They are hurting. What kind of inflation might I be feeling right now? If you have a car, you're feeling the pain at the pumps. If in the U.S., for example, nearly half of the gain in monthly consumer prices in March was due to rising petrol prices. Disagree. Other prices are increasing. They're just not reporting it. It's inaccurate. They're not covering that properly, ladies and gentlemen. Globally, food prices are also surging. The United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization Food Price Index, which tracks changes in international prices of commonly traded food commodities, rose for the 10th consecutive month in March to its highest level since 2014. And the uptick in inflation we just saw recently was the highest in over 8.5 years or something. Am I correct in that? They act like this just happened. That's the part that kills me. I just saw videos recently put out by people. They're acting like this is news. We've been talking about this. Where have they been? Oh, that's right. They were denying it. It wasn't happening. We weren't seeing it. How much did you and I knew it came from you guys. I saw it in your comments all the time. You guys had your eyes pegged on the treasury yield. I think it was one of you in the comments, a Maltby subscriber, that told me, Junius, a 7-year auction failed today. I was like, what? They couldn't get anyone to buy it. People don't want the dollar. The dollar's trash. It's a leper currency. It's a disease. You guys completely identified what was happening. We did as a community. And the rest of the world is acting like this was news. Each one of you got it. D-Dub, Silverbeard, Sarge, Jeff E., Lisa Willis. You guys all got it. You nailed it. And now they're talking about food prices. I'm telling you, I see that every time. I've told you guys time and time again. I wish we could come up with, you know what we should do? We really should. You know who? I'm not even going to give her the assignment, but it would be so funny if I did because she's so good at that kind of stuff. Our best numbers gal on the channel, she's here today in the chat, is Lisa Willis. She's like the official counter of ounces when there's a silver raid. Lisa Willis could be tasked with, she would have to do it out of her own. I think you could. Lisa, you'd be so good at this. If you just wrote down like 10 or 15 things and you shared that list, common items, things that you would buy where you live, where I would probably buy, where Bill Spencer, where everyone would buy, Mimaru, things the channel community always gets, like that are in your grocery bag or bought, what you go purchase, the grocery store, your average trip or whatever. I would say a gallon of milk, a carton of eggs, maybe an orange juice or some fruit, whatever kind of fruit it might be, apples or oranges, something like that. Maybe something international, maybe like a mango, I don't know. Your salad, maybe a certain particular cut of meat. I don't know if it's a pound of burger. I think that'd be a good measure because of the diverse applications that ground meat has, ground beef. You can make chili with it. You can make burgers with it. You can make a bolognese sauce, bolognese. That's one of the best that I make for Mrs. Maltby. Is when I stir down some burger meat for her. She loves my bolognese. She does. Ask Mrs. Maltby if she likes the bolognese that I make her. But anyways, Lisa, this is cool. I've wanted to do this. I really do. And a basket of goods, like the Junius Maltby channel community basket of goods. We could come up with it. We could do a poll and everyone could put these, we figure out like 10 or 15 items and then we track them. The monthly prices for those particular goods. The person that could set up a graph on this, I would imagine the best would be Physics Hypernova if we gave him the numbers. But if we just tracked a particular fixed measurement of certain goods, I've wanted to do this for a while, but I'd love to see it going. I'm actually frightened to see it going forward. I really am. But if we'd been doing this for years, I think it'd be amazing to track it and to see what it would look like today. But we plug in those, we put them on a chart, and we look at the Junius Maltby channel community basket of goods in a particular currency, in the US dollar. And we just track it over time and see where it goes. And I think it would look a lot like this or worse. I think it would be mostly an uptrend. You could even throw on like, I don't know, some type of entertainment thing on there, but who spends, we have diverse, I guess that would change from region to region. Yes, gasoline's changing, it's increasing. And then we've got the consumer price index on, of course, March due to petrol prices. Globally, food prices are surging. We talked about that. That's why I want to do this. The chart on that, higher food bills, global food costs are the highest since 2014. We laugh about it, you and I. We talk about on this channel about, a $300 loaf of bread like it's a joke. Can you imagine what that's like if all of our income stayed exactly the same and bread costs $300? This is where it gets simple. That's why we stack metal. Because in a world of $300 bread, Do you have any idea what a dime's worth of silver is worth? Probably $300, which means we're here. We're that. We've arrived. We have arrived at the horrors of hyperinflation. That's what that would mean. People act like we're crazy. Oh, why are you stacking metals, man? It's an archaic barbarous relic, man. Oh, you can't eat silver, man. Well, guess what, buddy? Let me tell you something. You can't eat silver, but if you don't have silver, you can't eat. Should we coin that? I just kind of had that today. That's kind of a Junius Maltby channel quote. You may not be able to eat silver, but in hyperinflation, if you don't have silver, you can't eat, period. Like, you can't eat. You ain't going to eat. I will. Because I'll take my silver to a baker and I'll be like, hey, yeah, I'd like 25 loaves of bread, please. Or 85 pounds of grain, please. Sorry, yeah. Oh, pardon me. 6,500 years of economic history and monetary existence on this planet as humans, utilizing the liquidity anchors known as gold and silver, just happens to have my back on this one. I apologize to those who don't get that fundamental principle. I'm sorry if you don't understand it, but it's quite clear. You might not be able to eat gold and silver, but if you don't have gold and silver, you won't eat. Someone write that down in the comments down below this video so I don't forget it. That'd be helpful, because then I can have Mrs. Maltby put it on a muggy mug for all of you. Yeah, that's a good one. We've got higher food bills. And that actually, it's sad. It frightens me. I don't like talking about higher food bills, believe me, because I don't have, I don't want to be going to the store and seeing this. I don't want to see little kids hungry. I don't want to see women staggering around trying to feed their family. I don't want to see gaunt bellies and faces and bread lines. Do you think I want that? No, I want to see this system destroyed so we can rebuild a better one, a new one. That's why if you're an apologist for this system, you're an apologist for the destruction that it will rot and bring upon us. That's why I can't stand people that deny inflation. It pisses me off. It really does. They're a threat to the system. They help perpetuate this. They're a threat to your and mine's security and safety because they help that system continue on by denying the flaws, denying the consequences. They're little bitches. That's what they are. And you guys know who I'm talking about. They don't get it. There's people in the entire, the fad of this precious metal stacking movement that some people are caught up in that come in and then leave. And I've been doing this my whole life. 7 years old, started stacking metal. Not a fad for me. I took that gold and silver pill, swallowed it, and I've never been back since. Some people are not going to get it, though. They won't get it. They won't see what's going on. Now, does everyone feel the pain equally? No, because people... Thank you for the super chat, Kangaroo Stacks. My friend, I see you. Thank you. I just looked over at the chat. I see that. And thank you. I appreciate that, Kangaroo Stacks. And then Ferris Fuentes, I appreciate that as well. Super chat, my friend. Thank you for the support of this channel. I will try to get Mrs. Maltby on helping me figure out and getting that quote on a mug for you guys. It'll be in the community later on. But again, I'm going to need you to write that quote down in the comments more than once so that I can read it. And I said it a few different ways in the video, so write down the best one that should be on a mug. Yeah, you can't eat gold and silver. But if you don't have gold and silver, you can't eat. Now, I don't think everyone feels the pain equally for a variety of reasons. Because some people are better prepared than others. Some people are prepared to address the rising food costs because they've purchased precious metals, because they have other savings, or maybe they grow their own. Maybe you live in a rural area. Rising prices of basic staples are exacerbating inequalities within and between nations even. But again, it affects different classes of an economy. These are things you're not going to get out of other channels. I'm going to go deep on this one real quick. Pretend you're on Social Security. You're a retired worker from fill in the blank. Maybe you're a Social Security earner or a pensioner. It doesn't matter. It's a fixed income. You get my point. You're living off $2,500 per month. Now let's say at present, the costs of living for yourself, your housing, your food, your medical care, all the things that you need to survive on your $2,500 a month that you get, your stipend for giving your life to something, perhaps all of your costs add up to $2,300. Now what happens when those costs start to creep up? In a few months, it's now $2,400. But you only got 25, so you have 100 left over. The next month, it's $2,435. The next month, $2,440, $2,450, $2,460, $2,470, $2,480, $2,490, $2,500. $2,500. So now that person's has nothing left at the end of the month. In Canada, we just covered the news the other night. 53% of Canadians have no money at the end of the month. We're getting to that point. Inflation will affect those on fixed or lower incomes, pensioners, social security earners, and they will suffer the worst. The wealthy, they'll probably make it through this. Yes, Mrs. Maltby, my lovely, beautiful wife. What do you got?
So I saw Kangaroo Stacks threw down a donation there. I was curious what it is that you said that was so quotable.
I said a quote. We're reading this thing about this. You know how everyone says you can't eat gold and silver?
Yes.
When we talk about preparing for inflation or hyperinflation.
Well, I've never seen anybody eat a fiat.
Well, this is what I told them. Yeah, I said that you cannot eat gold and silver, but in hyperinflation, if you don't have gold and silver, you can't eat.
Oh, okay.
But you could also switch it to, I wanted the quote, Mimaru actually wrote it down in there as well. She helped quote, but I wanted them to put it in the comments because I came up with a couple different ways that you could say it. You may not be able to eat gold and silver, but without gold and silver, you cannot eat. But different ways of putting it.
Are you pressuring people again?
Oh, yeah. I'm pressuring them to buy gold and silver.
Oh, man.
You may not be, you cannot eat, you can't eat silver.
Got it.
But in hyperinflation, if you don't have silver, you can't eat. The point of that was
as well.
The increase in food costs.
Yeah.
And how people use silver and gold during those times to acquire food.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the point of that expression is that people say anyway. Because
it's a response that an NPC booger eater has towards people who are buying precious metals.
There's a lot of those lately. I offended a few people this morning, so
in the chat?
Say I started my day off.
Did you? What'd you do?
No, not in the chat. In your community tab. Comments.
Oh, that one dude.
He was just one.
Oh, that's good. Little window licker.
It was a good day.
It was a good day, Mrs. Maltby. You read me one of the comments you wrote, and I applaud you. She's like a 110-pound Mike Tyson of verbal jujitsu. She threw down some words, broke some dudes. It was awesome. You're a champ, Mrs. Maltby. Keep it up.
Appreciate it.
No quarter.
Yeah, no quarter.
Take scalps. Man, I love that woman. She's amazing. Does everyone feel pain equally? No, we just talked about that. Rising prices, basic staples between nations. That's having a problem. That's because the low income. Oh, I just talked about that. I didn't even read it yet. That's because low income households, essentials like food and fuel, eat up larger shares of their monthly budgets. This is the sin and crime of inflation, and inflation comes. And it's funny. Socialists act like they're advocates and apologists for the poor and the lower income. Socialist policies are the most negative and detrimental towards the very demographics they pretend to protect. There's another quote, if you want to pull that up, of mine. Socialists have the most damaging policies for those that they say they are dedicated to protecting. Their overspending, their inflation, their modern monetary theory. They act like they care, but they're absolutely out to destroy you with their very ideas. In the U.S., a gallon, which is 3.8 liters of regular petrol, costs an average of $1.92. On April 6, 2020, a year later, it's up to $2.85, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. That's a 93% increase. Might not seem like much, but that amounts to an extra $11.16 to fill up a small car's 12-gallon tank. Who else feels the pain disproportionately? Inflation. It also hurts people on fixed incomes. I just talked about that, didn't I, ladies and gentlemen? Like older folks, retirees, people like me. Yeah, because we receive the same amount benefit, well, not on a benefit, but each month due to the prices increase. they can't buy as much as they used to with it. And I just gave you guys a long story on how that would work and what it would look like. Again, you've got all these champions, these Democrats and liberals and progressives, cultural Marxists. They run around there beating this drum like they're there to help the retired teacher, right? And the pensioners, the Social Security earners, the elderly. And how do they do it? By creating the very policies that make those people's life that they pretend to advocate for, it destroys them. Their policies destroy those people's lives. And it's provable. Many of the best economists have proven this point time and time again. And for some reason, the leftists ignore it. Which means they're either stupid, they can't comprehend it or compute it, or they don't care. They're apathetic to the very people they pretend to protect. Or, truly, they're sinister. That's it. That's the choices there. What are the long-term effects of all of this? Well, I've already told you. Past a certain point, it's over. You have to make a new system. There's no going back. It's that bus off the mountain pass, the Khyber Pass bus that just falls and careens. It can be destroyed. The economy can be annihilated as a result of this. I don't know if they can pull out of what's coming. I think it could get to the point where they're not going to be able to, and that's why they're already preparing you and prepping people to be aware of the term Great Reset. There's a very good reason for the reason that they've been talking about the Great Reset, paradigm shifts, and Bretton Woods type meetings. The reason that's been on the forefront of a lot of people's news and on the peripheral, they're sowing the seeds. They're trying to convince you, Jeff E. and Kangaroo Stacks and Silverbeard and Bill Spencer and both Ricks, Rick Squared. They're trying to convince you that this is going to be an acceptable situation. You have to be prepared for it. This is coming. The Great Reset's good. Inflation is good. War is peace. All of those things. Diversity is strength. They're going to just keep plugging their little liners at you, their one-liners, hoping that when it does finally happen, you're like, this is good. This is what was supposed to happen. We need a reset. Cue the NPCs. That's how they're all going to react. When really, it sounds nice. It sounds benign. But it's just further enslavement and destruction of your rights and your liberties and your sound money and your standard of living, your wealth, the erosions of all of those things. That's all it turns into. But it sounds cute, right? Great Reset. Bretton Woods meeting. You got little Janet Jello. The albino with the bowl cut. You got her up there. Who puts her lipstick on, by the way? Have you ever noticed that? It's quite messy. She's like she's trying to put it on with a palsy arm or something. Like she has a tremor and she just smears lipstick all over her face. It's bizarre. Bizarre looking woman. I'm sorry. I'm going to be a little cruel sometimes to mine enemies. To mine enemies, This disparity has contributed to a K-shaped recovery from the coronavirus recession. The groups that were on top to begin with, wealthy people, for example, who own houses and stock portfolios, maybe they're not going to be wealthy for long because those portfolios are denominated in dollars. They've kept working from home during the pandemic. What do they do? What are these people that just I don't know, what do they even do? I don't know. Well, their portfolios, everything, it keep rising while the bottom low-wage workers continue to decline as their purchasing power declines, spurring wider inequality. Again, everyone talks about the inequality. Remember that the other day? Jamie Dimon from Goldman and all the JP Morgan guys or whatever, his little bank, JP, all these guys. They're out there acting like they're social justice warriors now. We've got these social justice warrior capitalists, these highfalutin Wall Street titans. They're now advocates for the people. Like they want to put on tights and be viewed like Robin Hoods. Oh, we need to talk about inequality. What are you talking about? Jamie, you're worth like $75 billion. You get $600 million bonuses. Who in the hell are you to talk about inequality? You're one of the architects of the system that creates inequality. So shut the F up, Jamie Dimon. Grab the guy by the back of the neck and just slam his head into something solid. Does anyone else see the hypocrisy in these people? It's unbelievable. It's almost entertainment. Like, you can't even write this stuff. Jamie Dimon, headline news, advocate to prevent inequality, outlining how it's one of our problems. An architect of inequality. One of the guys who's wealthy and immune to inflation because he's got so much wealth and he's got so much stacked up. He's so prepared for it. And he's sitting there cheered on by cultural Marxists and progressives and the left to create and perpetuate policies that exacerbate the very problems he becomes a new, protector from, an advocate for. He tries to be the solution to the problems he creates, and people don't see it. That's why rebellion is necessary. The only thing you can do is throw off the yoke of tyranny and dismantle the system. That's why people will go, oh, Junius, you really want to destroy the system? Hell yes, I do. I'm sick and tired of pretending that I've never pretended that I don't. Some people do. Burn it down. Yeah. Demolish it and rebuild it. We haven't succeeded until we've dismantled this entire system. The inequality that's created is created by those who are pretending they care. Yikes. What about a country where food prices have soared? People need to eat. And price surges don't make that any less true. In Nigeria, inflation hit a 4-year peak in February, led by a 21.79% surge in food prices. Again, we can learn lessons from these other countries. Now, these countries already experience high rates of unemployment and crime, and experts warn that the increases in prices of everyday foods could spark unrest. In Lebanon, a country that was already in the throes of its worst economic crisis in decades before COVID-19 struck, the plummeting value of the local currency has decimated purchasing power, causing food prices to soar 5 times what they were in 2019. You got to look at these, my friends. Please, these are the lessons. These are the life lessons. This is where you and I learn from these little cases. These are proofs of concept. These are examples that you can glean from. This situation in Lebanon is tragic. This is truly tragic. Look at it. Here's Lebanon. What can you buy with 10,000 Lebanese pounds? 10,000 Lebanese pounds. A continuing economic crisis has caused food prices to soar, leaving many unable to buy basic items. So in 2019, look at this. 10,000 Lebanese pounds would purchase this. Look at this. Milk, a big pile of vegetables, a big pile of fruit. Looks like this is a giant bottle, I believe, of rice here. A kilogram of rice. Look at this. There's some meat over here. Take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen. This is very important. You could replace this with US dollars. You're not going to see this other places right now. We're going to talk about this. This is why I go to the news sites like this. This is good. This is good stuff. Please zoom in here and take a look with me. I know I might have lost some of you. People get distracted. They lose their attention span. They can't tune into this stuff for any length of time. But I'm hoping that each one of you is looking at what we're looking at right now. The cash receipt from March 2019 is about 10,000 Lebanese pounds. And they were able to get milk, tomatoes, oranges, apples, cucumbers, rice, and chicken. You can see the kilogram measurements there. That's about 10,250 pounds. Now look at this. Go forward 1 year. A year later, same amount of money, 10,000. Year's 2020, March. All they were able to get was the milk, tomatoes, and oranges. No meat, no rice, nothing else. Look at this. Now look at this. A year later, 2021. 10,000 Lebanese pounds. A liter of milk. That's all they get. That's all they get. Do you realize how important this image is? This is the most powerful image of the video. This is the most important image of the video. This is the part of the video that you write below the timestamp when you share it with friends, when you forward this video on later. Say, hey, if you're not going to watch anything, watch this part. Check this out. This is happening. This is coming to us. This is coming to a grocery store near you. Lisa, this is coming to your basket of goods. Aloha. You, my friend? Well, I'm not disclosing any top secret stuff. I know you're in Hawaii because you tell us that. And your name's Aloha. This is coming to you, buddy. And you know what I would worry about? You're in Hawaii. Shipping costs. Getting this stuff to you. The cool part is you could have a rad garden in Hawaii, man. You could get a seed broadcaster and just throw vegetable and fruit seeds around your property and grow them. You could probably live off your land there, which is amazing. That's what you got going for you. You could have solar panels. You could catch fish. You could grow your own food. You could be pretty well prepared. Your biggest threat's going to be the masses of NPCs that weren't prepared and don't know how to do any work or farm or create food. But if you've got some land and you're in Hawaii, you'll be okay, my friend. I think you'll be fine, especially those coconuts. Coconut water, some coconut meat, good nutrition there. Man, actually, you know what? I'm going to get in a canoe. I'm going to paddle over to you when this goes down because you could grow so much good food there. But ladies and gentlemen, this is going to affect all of you. Your grocery receipts and bills will look like this. Look how quickly this happened. Does that shock you? Does it send chills? This makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. When they crashed this system, look at those receipts. 2019, 2020, and 2021. 3 years. Now, what did gold and silver do in Lebanese pounds? Should we take a look? I don't know. I haven't looked at that. I'll be honest. I haven't even researched that. This is live. So let's go take a look. Let's go to silverprice.org and check out Lebanese pounds. I want to see. I'm not sure what's happened. I don't know what I'm going to find. Let's go down here. Is it even in here? You know what I'll do? I will just Google it because there it is. It's there. Lebanese pounds. Oh, it's only 35,580 or 38,000. Okay, let's do that here too. LBP. I'm going to see a chart of Lebanese pounds. Oh, give me a moment here. This is very important, and I'm going to show you why in just a second, because you can't eat silver, but if you don't have silver in Lebanon, you can't eat. Where is it? Am I going up or down? I am looking for Lebanese pounds on the silver chart. You guys got nowhere else to be, so we're good. Oh, there it is. 10 years. Came down. Let's go to 2-year chart. Oh, it's up a lot. Okay, there we go to the 3 years. 5-year chart. 5-year chart. There it is. So, interesting. Okay, I can see it now. Can I bring it up a little bigger? Let's try that. I'll try that. This is Lebanese pound. No, they're not showing it to me there. I want it to, that's in gold. I want to see it. There it is in silver. It must be in red. Let me go back. I don't like the way Silver Price has been handling their chart methods. We've got it here. You can see it good enough. I'll kind of read it to you. You've got right here, if I scroll up, let me get it in bigger so there so you guys can see it. The reason I'm bringing this up, it's very important. I know you guys are being patient with me. Hold on, there we go. I'll center that. Ignore the gold chart to the right because that's still in US dollars. Does not matter for this discussion right now. We could bring it up and we could bring up gold in Lebanese though. Let's do that. Might as well. Might as well. Let's get both charts. I know this is taking some work, but hey, bear with me. I'm almost there. It's hard to scroll through all of these currencies and read them with my eyes. Do they have the gold in Lebanese? There it is. There's the valuation, 2,600,000 pounds per ounce. And let me get the chart. There, I got it. I found that much quicker this time. Okay. And we will go to 3-year, 5-year chart. Okay. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, it took me a minute, but I got it. I'm sorry. This just came to me after looking at the food chart. There you go. That is, okay. Want to talk about wealth preservation? Want to talk about buying food, being able to buy food? Take a look at this. Let's say you were in Lebanon. You stacked silver, you stacked gold last 5 years. I mean, it was already expensive to find this stuff, probably for them. But look at that chart in their native currencies. Look at it. You've got silver up at 38,000. I mean, they've had dramatic problems in their currency stream, but 38,000 Lebanese pounds per ounce of silver right now. 2,640,000 Lebanese pounds for an ounce of gold. Both charts showing significant rises in their prices. And both charts almost identical, if I'm right. Oh, I gotta get the silver here. This is gold. There we go. That's the one I want to look at. They're very similar charts. So as you can see here, silver went from 25,000 pounds back in 2017. Looks like below it, even probably 24,000 something pounds here. And now it's up above 40,000 pounds. It dipped below 20,000 here, like 18,000 pounds up to 40. So it multiplied times almost 4, which would put silver, if that happened in America, a 4-factor multiplication of silver would put silver at over $100 an ounce on paper price. Per ounce, you're talking probably 200 with premiums and such. Who knows? You're not going to be able to get it. But this should scare you a little bit of a window. People deny. Of course, wait a minute. Junius, we're immune to that. Junius, we're immune. We're the U.S. dollar. We have American exceptionalism. We have American privilege. We have U.S. dollar privilege, Federal Reserve note privilege. We're immune. We're not brown people. We're not in a desert. We're not in Africa. We're not in, Southeast Asia. We're not in South America. We're Americans. We don't do that. Okay? Really? You do the same policies, jackass. What makes you any different? Why are you immune? Oh, you just don't get it, man. It's different here. Shut the hell up. Get out of here. You're illogical. You're stupid. I don't like you. There's the chart. Imagine $2.6 million per ounce gold. Anyone here imagining that? You'd have to sell gold by like the nanogram. You probably wouldn't even get rid of it. Can you imagine that for a second? How about $38,000 silver? Are there any of you that have ever contemplated what your stack would be valued at if it was $38,000 per ounce? Anybody? Bueller? Ferris Fuentes? Can you imagine? Imagine a $38,600 Libertad. You know what? All that means it's going to buy you food. $500 a loaf bread. Remember the quote that was born on this channel because of you guys and today, us hanging out. You may not be able to eat silver and gold, but during massive and hyperinflation, without silver and gold, you can't eat. Remember that. It's the most important thing we've talked about all day. Back to the frightening Lebanon situation. That's just 3 years. 10,000 of their pounds went from buying an entire couple of days worth of groceries, all that food, to just a little tiny liter of milk. Now, what about hyperinflation? I told you this was going to be a long video today. What's that exactly? We've talked about that. It doesn't really make me afraid because you know what? The currency's dead usually before hyperinflation even shows up. It's when prices rise at a rapid pace and an economy can experience hyperinflation. It's generally defined as inflation of 50% or more per month. So you mean to tell me if we only had 10% per month inflation, it's not hyperinflation? 10% inflation per month would be literally unsustainable for me. I would be committing crimes within a week. Probably sooner. Can you imagine 10% inflation a month? And that's not considered hyperinflation. Again, that's how they get away with not, people, hyperinflation is not. I'm not afraid of hyperinflation. I'm afraid of inflation because they're just going to call it inflation. It's going to be worse than that. And they're going to hide those numbers. They're going to lie to us. I don't care about hyperinflation. Hopefully, we've destroyed the system before it even sets. As a matter of, when hyperinflation shows up, that means the system is gone. It's over. It's destroyed. It's in its death throes. That makes an economy and a society extremely unstable. The price of goods like bread can literally double in a matter of days. And consumers can need baskets of currency to pay for everyday goods. People don't know what their money will be worth from day to the next, which can lead to hoarding and shortages. I like that, Jeffy. No shiny, no tendies. No silver, no chicken nuggets, people. That's horrendous. Is there a country experiencing this right now? Yes, Venezuela. Another economy that was on its knees before COVID struck is currently experiencing 2,665% annual inflation rate. Imagine if you're on a pension that only increases by like 2% a year, and the Fed's lying to you, the Treasury's lying to you, and their apologists, stupid booger eater YouTube stacker channels, are telling you there's no inflation, but you're sitting there staring down the barrel of 2,665% annual inflation a month. It takes 400,000 bolivars, the equivalent of 20 US cents, to buy a round-trip transit ticket in the capital of Caracas. They're changing their currency. They have to print new million bolivar notes. We talked about that recently. Before hyperinflation hit in 2017, the exchange rate was around 10 Venezuelan bolivars to the US dollar. In August of 2018, it jumped to a record 2 million. Oh, they got a comma wrong. I think it's 2,450,000 million. Yeah, it's bolivars to the dollar. 2 million. And is now about 1.8 million bolivars to the dollar, according to the U.S. Federal Reserve data. Faced with that plummet in value, the Central Bank of Venezuela recently issued new bills worth more to avoid people having to carry armloads of the smaller bills into stores to buy goods. There is now a 1 million bolivar note. You know why they probably want to go digital too? Is so they don't have to print notes. So you don't have to see inflation. Have you ever thought of that for a second? Bill, Spencer, Jerry Swan, Aloha Stacker, Ferris Fuentes, physics, Hypernova. Have you ever thought of this one, my friend? Think of this for 1 second. Think of the benefit of them having digital. Consumers will no longer visualize the increased requirement of the amount of bills. Think of the psychological effect that has when you have to put all your bills into a wheelbarrow or a duffel bag to buy food. It'll just show up on the screen. They'll just tap little digits on their iPhone and confirm a transaction of $100 million for whatever food they're buying. Maybe the effect will be less. It'll be deadened. They'll be able to mute the response. I've never really thought of that until I thought of the situation with Bolivar printing off in Venezuela, issuing new bills worth more so that they can avoid people carrying armloads of bills into stores. There's now a 1 million Bolivar note, which reminds me, please, ladies and gentlemen of the Junius Maltby channel, I would really like one. If any of you have access, if you know somebody in Venezuela or you find one, you go there, you smuggle one out of the country. If there's any Venezuelan viewers of this channel, please contact me. I would really like to acquire some of these million Bolivar notes for my Fiat Empire trash cemetery. I've got a whole pile of dead Fiat. And I would really like to get a hold of one of these notes for a video. So please, if you would, help me find a 1 million Bolivar note. I'm willing to pay the 20 cents for it. I'll pay more, maybe 40 cents. I'll give you 5 million Bolivars worth of U.S. currency for a Bolivar note. All right? Hook me up. Hook a brother up. Now, this person here is showing a new 500 million, so that's a 500,000 Bolivar bill. I'd like to get one of those, too. Now, are there any upsides to inflation? No, I don't think so. But they're going to always tell you that a little inflation is a good thing because it keeps the economy humming along. Yeah, that's just an expansion of the money supply, but hopefully it's being consumed at the rate so there really is no change in prices. That's how it is. You need sound money. If anything, prices sometimes should go down because the currency should grow stronger. Now, how so? Because if people think prices go up slightly, they're less likely to delay purchases. I don't care about that. This is why the Fed sets its target rate at 2%. They try to encourage consumption. We know that. Oh, look, it's the bowl cut albino. There she is. That's her. That's Janet. Janet Jello. There she is. There she is to save the day. Oh, my goodness. Now, I talked about consumer price. Here's the inflation headlines we saw recently. I don't need that up anymore. Checking in currently on the morning. I'm going to go to metals. We got silver up 25.46, just barely. It was up yesterday pretty good. Gold 17.36, hanging out about $11 down today. Not a big deal. Bonds, 10-year treasuries up a little bit, 164. And then we got the U.S. market sitting at, real quick, this is just a check-in. Give us some numbers to think about in the future. Dow Jones up 207 at 33,885. S&P up 4.99, up 4,146. Boy, is a haircut due for these boys. It's coming, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, it is coming. There will be a haircut on the markets. Import prices jumped, adding to inflation. Okay, another proof. Inflation's here. It's coming. It has arrived. Inflation there. Now, there was an article recent. Check this out. Earlier in the year, I wanted to show you this because this is from the New York Times. Inflation is higher than the numbers say. I've told you this. They lie to us. They all lie to us. Government statistics say inflation is low. The reality is the cost of living has risen during the pandemic, especially for poor Americans. The very people that Junius is an advocate for. The very people I told you inflation hurts the worst. And here's a headline from the New York Times. I don't know how this escaped the editor's desk. I don't know how the operatives and the state advocates that are in there to screen material, I don't know how this made it into circulation, honestly, because it's kind of one of those articles that exposes the truth. How did it make it through? How did this make it through? Inflation higher than the numbers say. While government statistics say inflation is low, the reality is that the cost of living has risen during the pandemic, especially for poor Americans. And this was a dated article. This is from September 2020. And this is, again, I was talking about inflation back then too. People were saying it didn't exist. Remember? You guys know the names. Say it. Come on, say it. You know the names. There's a lot of people that say inflation is not real. It wasn't happening back in September. I was. And they, apparently me and the New York Times and you guys, we all called it. Then you got the hobby channels, the ones that, the fence riders, the flip-floppers, the flim-flam man. They can't really talk about it. They don't want to put themselves out there. You know who I'm talking about. Yeah. They denied it. Well, in September, the latest inflation statistics said that the prices rose only 1% over last year. But there's something wrong with these numbers because the pandemic had economic life more expensive in ways the official bean counters are capturing. This distortion has led other economic statistics to paint an artificially rosy picture of our current situation. Problem is, measures like real output, real wages, and poverty are calculated using inflation adjustments, yes, that don't reflect the higher cost of living during a pandemic. I've been saying that for years. They don't use the real numbers. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Again, this article essentially has Junius's back. They lied. It's just basically saying that it's gotten worse. The numbers they use aren't real. True inflation rate has risen. Look at this. The true inflation rate has risen. This is from the New York Times, and this is in September. I just wanted to show you that. I wanted to bring that up because it's important. Now, they use alternate inflation charts from Stats. I like to go there. I believe these guys, again, I think it's very important to acknowledge the lie and to expose it. If you realize you cannot rely on the real inflation numbers, you'll make better decisions. It's accurate information. Would you drive your car if the speedometer was totally broken? I mean, you drive it, but would you rely on the speed that it's telling you? If you were doing 65 on an interstate and you were keeping up with traffic, but your speedometer said you were going 10, would you believe it? Of course not. Alternate inflation charts. Let me get this pulled up. Let me get it nice and centered for you so you can see what we're looking at. I know a lot of you want to be able to see the same screen the way I am, so I'll center it, make it better for you. Alternate inflation CPR chart on the home page reflects our estimated of inflation for today as if it were calculated the same way it was in 1990. The CPI on the alternate data series tab here reflects this. See, they changed it. The CPI was if it were calculated using the methodologies in place in 1980. That's right, pre-1980 numbers. You see, they change the way they calculate this over time to make them look better. They try to throw stuff out, get certain goods out, implement other policies in ways that it's measured. Fact is, all that does is make them look better. You cannot rely on their information. Now, here we can see CPI year-to-year growth right here. Now, the official is in red, okay? That is the official. This is the 1990 numbers. Can you look at the screen here? I'm going to get right there, okay. And I could bring it up. I'll blow it up for you. I'll make it a little bit clearer so you can see the actual charts in bigger detail. Right there, centered. There we go. Okay, so here's the red line. I got my mouse on it. That is the official versus the Shadow Stats 1990. There's the official, red. Look at this, just upticked here, a little bit above 2. They're saying 2.6, right? Now the yellow is the experimental CCPI, which it follows it almost identically. It's not even worth acknowledging. Now here's the Shadow Stats alternative 1990 base. If you went by 1990 inflation, ladies and gentlemen, physics, check it out. Kane Leggett, DB, Jeff, check it out. We are at 6% based on the 1990 numbers, which were already skewed. This is from April 13th, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. 6% inflation, okay? According to the 1990 numbers. Now let's go down here. It gets worse. It's way worse. Can you see this? Let me get it adjusted for you. There you go. Check this out. Here's 1980 numbers. I talk about these quite a lot. Look at the bifurcation. Look at the separation of this chart. Look at this. So, the official rate of inflation is in red. That's what the government told you yesterday. This is the official. This is when the media told you. This is the one, the booger eaters, the NPCs. Cue the NPCs, please. All of them, the masses. This is what the little YouTubers, the little crayon eaters, window lickers, you know, those that probably shouldn't be allowed to operate any type of heavy equipment or machinery. They believe this number in red. We're sitting down here at 2%, negligible. Look at that, right there. This is the bottom line. There's 2. This is when you use the 1980 metrics. Now they're saying what they're here, but if the 1980 metrics is in blue, this is what it really is now. When I've told you it's over 10%. Over 10% inflation. Pay attention to this. 10%. Remember those guys? We don't see inflation. There's no inflation. We're not seeing it yet. Dollar's still strong. There's no inflation. There's no inflation, huh? There's no inflation? Tell that, I'm sure, you know what's funny about that is the article we read just recently, just a moments ago, from Al Jazeera, showing the people in Lebanese pounds. what did we just talk about? 10,000 pounds, bought an entire basket of groceries one day. The next day they had to throw half of it out. A year later, it was cut in half essentially. And then a year after that, 3 years, after 3 years, 10,000 of the Lebanese pounds only purchased them the little liter of milk. A little liter of milk. And meanwhile, gold in Lebanese pounds is 2.6 million pounds per ounce. Almost 2.7. 2,700,000 of your native currency per ounce. 38,000 of your native currency per ounce of silver. Remember what I said. Remember what we talked about today. When people tell you, oh, you can't eat silver, you can't eat gold. Yeah, you can't eat silver, but during inflation, without silver, you can't eat. I'm sure those people in Lebanon that stacked silver and stacked gold at those valuations are doing a little bit better. Very important to anyways realize that the numbers they're telling you are completely false, completely skewed and lies. They throw out certain things. They've changed. You know who did a very good expose and the discussion on this was the guy Chris Martinson. He years ago he was making a lot of videos and discussions on these topics. He covered it quite well. He covered this quite well. The changes and how they measure and discuss inflation. Look, it's coming, and what's coming is worse than what they're telling you because they're lying every day. Every number they're telling us is a lie. It's all false. All the data cannot be relied upon. You're on your own. No one's coming to help us. We are on our own. And there's funny little questions people ask, but this is actually from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. I like this. I want to talk about this. Hedonic adjustment. Hedonic quality adjustment. Big word. Check this out. Let's just read what they have to say about it because it's a big thing. Let me get it centered for you. You can read it. This is from the Bureau of Labor. This is a government site. This is what the masters want you to read. This is what they want you to see. This is their little definitions when they write them. And what is, there it is. Can I get that to fit? Gosh, it's going to be small font. You guys barely be able to see it. There we go. There we go. Pardon me. All right. What is hedonic quality adjustment? Hedonic quality adjustment is one of the techniques the CPI uses to account for changing product quality within some CPI items samples. Hedonic quality adjustment refers to a method for adjusting prices whenever the characteristics of the products included in the CPI change due to innovation or the introduction of completely new products. I'm going to pause there. So, for example, if a particular device cost $100, I'm going to try to make this real simple, use small words for the NPCs that might show up and watch this at some point. You have a device, and just picture any device. It costs $100. Now, if the next year it costs $120 because the labor and the materials to produce that device have gone up. Now it's let's say it's $120 with all that. All the increases, the labor costs, maybe the currency's been divided and debased a little bit. Maybe the materials have gone up in price due to inflation. So now it costs $120, right? Now what the government will do, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the people that make these measurements, let's say that same company improved that device. They added a feature, another button, another something that made it more ergonomic. Maybe it's more has more efficiency, more speed. It's improved somehow. They'll measure that against the increased cost to lower the amount that it's cost against what its value is. They'll lower the amount. They'll say that it didn't go up as much as in cost because there's these improvements to it. These are these hedonic adjustments. And it's a lie. It's just a way to tell you that there's not a cost increase, to try to downplay CPI. It works in their favor. The use of the word hedonic to describe this technique stems from the Greek word, origin meaning of or related to pleasure. Economists approximate pleasure to the idea of utility, a measure of relative satisfaction from consumption of goods. In price index methodology, hedonic quality adjustment has come to mean the practice of decomposing an item into its constituent characteristics, obtaining estimates of the value of the utility derived from each characteristic, and using those value estimates to adjust prices when the quality of a good changes. That's a lot of fancy, stupid economic words. These words that they're using is basically an excuse of this is why and this is how you and I are. I'm trying to put this how they. It's basically them lying. It's the excuse of them lying. This is how they cover their tracks. They're telling you. You know what? I'm going to use vulgar terms here. They're pissing on you and telling it's raining. That's what it is. This is the BLS, which they take the L out. This is BS, Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is them pissing on you and telling you that it's raining. They're making excuses. They're covering their tracks. The CPI obtains the value estimates used to adjust prices through the statistical technique known as regression analysis. Hedonic regression models are estimated to determine the value of the utility derived from each of the characteristics that jointly constitute an item. That's why you cannot believe government statistics and you can't believe anything the BLS. Measuring inflation. The Brookings Institute. We're not even going to go into that article. It's garbage. Now, CPI, I'm going to tell you why it's controversial. Because they changed all the time and because it's the government that gives us the numbers. There's a lot of controversy on how it's done. They changed it, these hedonics methodologies and all this. A lot of controversy. And they're liars. They change it all the time to cover their tracks. That's all you need to know. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all you need to know. All you need to know is they're lying to you. They're lying to me, and people that cover for them and are apologists for them are also lying. That's it for today's discussion. I probably took too much of your time, and I apologize. But that's it for today. I think it was a good discussion. We covered a lot of material. I appreciate each and every one of you who participated, who was here today. Thanks for being part of this channel. Thanks for being part of the Junius Maltby channel. Thanks for your support, your participation in the comments. Please like the video. Share the video. If you're one of the Wall Street silver crowd, share this over there. Tell those boys they need to understand the fundamentals of this. And raise the awareness. Let those that have been denying inflation, let them know. You've seen it. And you know what they truly have said. You know the fence riders. You know the flip-floppers and the flim-flam. Let them know. Call them out. Call them out like we just did. When you see them trying to wiggle their way in for their own particular reasons and glory, or to get view counts, or to get more subscribers and viewers, to jump on a bandwagon, to run with the crowd, to try to fit in, point them out. Call them out. Say, hey, I see your BS, man. You've been denying inflation. You've been an apologist for the dollar. You tell people the dollar's strong. You tell people to hold the dollars. Junius says to get out of it completely, to lower your dollar exposure completely. Junius is the one telling you to destroy the system, break the system down. He hates this system. He's not riding the fence. I'm comfortable calling it out. Yeah, I'm vitriolic with it. Absolutely. There is an ideology here, ladies and gentlemen. This is the ideology of sound money and precious metals. There's no fence riders here. I called inflation out. I told you it's coming. I told you it's bad. And you saw it too. I'm not the only one. Peter Schiff saw it. Ron Paul saw it. Michael Burry saw it. Jim Rickards saw it. A lot of people saw this. Alasdair MacLeod saw this. The writers for Lou Rockwell saw this. Anyone in the Austrian School of Economics saw this. Physics Hypernova saw this. A lot didn't, though. But now they're pretending they did. Now they pretend that they did. And it's despicable. It's disgusting. Spread the fundamentals. Be steadfast in this ideology. Stand up for it. Put your foot down. And let those bastards know you see and know who they are and you're never going to listen to them again. We aren't. Thanks for tuning in, friends. I'm glad you're all here. You're the best. Keep it up. After I sign off, it's up to you. Whenever I hit the end stream, when I hit this red button and end the stream, it's up to you to go to war. It's up to you. It's you guys. It's your turn. So take the fight to them. Keep stacking. Remember, hashtag the raid never ends. Go buy some silver. Defy the critics. Defy those who talk against us, criticize us, mock us. You know who they are. The ones that made fun of silver raids, said we'll never have an effect on anything. Not to do it, that they were silly, that it's childish. You know who they are. Same people that denied inflation. Same people that promoted the US dollar. You know who they are. You know exactly who they are. There's a lot of them. There's a couple. There's a few. There's more than one. We'll show them who's boss. There's a reason silver raids have made it into the news. The silver squeeze has made it into the news. We're having an effect. Supply is down. Premiums are up because of us. We're affecting the system. We are having a massive effect on the system. And it's only yet begun. And it's about to get worse. We're on the right side of this. You're on the right side of history. You know the trend. You know the direction this is going in. It's going to fall apart. And every single one of you in this chat is prepared. You're a very small percentage of people. Very small. Most people are watching TikTok videos of idiots dance around in their pajamas or paying attention to celebrities. You guys are the tip of the economic spear. It's pretty awesome. You're set apart. Some of you are more prepared than I am, more intelligent than I am, more equipped, have been doing this longer. Some of you are older than I am, have been in these trenches for decades. We've been in this fight for a long time, while others are just now showing up. We welcome them. We welcome them to join in the fight. But they didn't start this. They didn't start this. They merely showed up as reinforcements. Thank you all for being here. Have a good rest of your day. Please like, share, subscribe, and spread the word about the Junius Maltby channel. Spread the word. Take care.